I was introduced to the world of sales training and development, and to coaching, and to leadership development, and really to living intentionally, setting goals by a man named Warren Lewis. If you've been around me for a while, you've heard this name. Warren was my guy when it comes to the work that I do today. Warren was introduced to me by my father, Wayne Herring Sr., when I joined my dad's company, Preferred Warranties. And Warren at that time was a Sandler sales trainer. He had been a Sandler sales franchisee, and he worked with my team. He worked with my sales managers. He worked with the whole executive team at my company. But most important for me is he helped me to communicate with my dad. But then later on, he helped me, as I said, to live intentionally and to pursue the idea of a created life, writing a 10-year vision, a 3-year vision, setting goals, and then doing the small steps along the way that were going to help me reach that goal. Several years ago, Warren and I sat down and we had a pretty long conversation, particularly about selling and about sales management and about how business builders can build a sales team and how business builders can help salespeople to be effective, keep them on track. How do you know when to give them a performance improvement plan, when to fire them, how to hire them, how to find the best, how to help them prospect, how to coach them when they're down in the dumps. We cover a wide range of topics in this interview, and although it's pretty long, I encourage you to listen, take notes, go back to it if you have to, leave it. I think you're going to hear some gold and some gems in here that are going to make you want to not just listen into the car while you're exercising, but listen to it again when you have a notebook and a pen and can take some notes and really think about how can you shift and adjust as a business owner to maximize the likelihood of success of your enterprise, your individual salespeople, you, etc. Warren Lewis is quite possibly, even though he was a little bit older, quite possibly one of the best salespeople I've ever met. And his ability to convey a simple system is second to none. So I encourage you to give this a chance. It's very relevant in 2023 or 24, whenever you listen to it, just as it was when I recorded it back in 2019. And beyond that, Warren Lewis was a gem of a man, and I appreciate you listening to his words so that his legacy can live on. He would want you to keep going and to build your business and thrive. Welcome to the Business Builder Way podcast, where we help business builders grow leadership skills and wisdom and stay grounded through hero stories. So let's get after it.
Clarity. When I was an employee, when I first started out and was doing sales and business development, which was in the construction field, what I really always just wanted from my manager and from the company was clarity. I wanted to know clearly, how am I doing? I wanted to know, what am I supposed to do next? What do you expect of me? I really wanted to know how I got the truck with the logo on the side. That was important to me because that was one of my hot buttons and motivators, but it's different for everybody. I do know this idea of, you mentioned something about getting around other people who are maybe better than you, and even today, that's a hard concept for me when I join up with a mastermind group of other people. Yeah, I've asked you about this and talked to you about it, who are better than me. It's hard on the ego. On the other hand, I know it always makes me a better person when I'm getting in a room of people who are, so maybe there's areas I'm ahead, but on the whole, they're ahead of me and they're sharper than my current skills. It's hard, but I think you're right.
I had a company just in the last month that joined a group of company owners, and he told me about it. And the one thing I asked him, I said, do you get a financial composite with your membership? And he said, yes, we do. I said, have you looked at it yet? He said, yes, I have. I said, are many of the other business owners more profitable than you are? And he said, I'm embarrassed to tell you, but yes, they are. I said, well, that's wonderful. you're in the right group then. So that's the way I feel, Wayne. Get with people that are better than you are, and you'll grow.
Kind of along those lines, you mentioned, and I have a question, which I'll get to right after this one. You had mentioned about role playing and owners role playing with their people. And I know that was hard for me when I got into sales management and sales leadership. I was hesitant. I came into now, but this will happen to business owners where they hire some salespeople who have more years of experience on their resume in sales. It can be intimidating to role play sometimes. And so there's two things here. One is business owners tell me they don't have enough time for things like that. And the second thing is that is probably unspoken, but I know that I've experienced, and it is a bit of a fear that I might screw up in a role play. And if I'm role playing with somebody and I'm playing the part of the salesperson and I screw up, what does that say to my salesperson? How do you address sales managers and owners, because it's a lot of who I work with, who are what I call reluctant sales managers. They don't have somebody else, so they have to be it. Do you need to be better than your salespeople to be a good coach, a good mentor, a good role play partner? How do you feel about some of those things that I've said?
I sure hope my people are better than I am, because if you surround yourself with good people, you're going to be successful. But I think it goes back to, you got to have a good rapport with your people. It's okay to fail. It's okay to not be super sharp every moment of the day. And when you said they don't have enough time, that really galls me. I've heard that so many times, Wayne. There isn't anything more important than helping a person, salesperson, the department, whatever, achieve their goals. That's where it's at. And you ought to be a good enough and efficient enough manager that you can prioritize your day and realize the most important thing that you have to do is work with your people to have them accomplish their goals. Because if each one accomplishes their goals, you're going to accomplish yours. And as far as screwing up, how many times do we go on a sales call and we screw it up? We come out of that sales call and we say, why did I do that? You do the same thing in role playing, but that's how we learn. Develop a good relationship with your people. Salespeople develop a good relationship with your manager, and it's okay to screw up.
Perfect. Thank you. So what traits do you absolutely want to see in potential sales hires? And is it good enough to see these traits measured on an assessment, or do you need to see demonstrated field success, which I assume would be more like a resume? If you have examples of success with either path, that would be great. You and I used a fair bit of DISC and motivators, drivers in assessing salespeople back in the day. Lately, I've been using those more as coaching tools for sales manager, and I've been using the Curlin Objective Management Group on the front end for assessing salespeople for attitude, sales DNA, what they're motivated by, things like that. But at any rate, what traits do you see in potential sales hires? What are you looking for? And then how do you balance success and what they tell you about success with what in assessment?
I think the first thing that I would recommend is you be sure that what you want in your salesperson, and it all depends on what kind of business you have, but I really believe the concept of benchmarking, and Wayne, you know that well, and you can coach your people well on that, but the concept of benchmarking really lays out what the job is. As far as the traits, I would look for traits that are close to what your benchmark is. I personally believe a salesperson has to be a good decision maker. So I would ask the questions in my interview, which would be the next thing, I think, the benchmark, and then get the assessment done. And then when it gets to the interview, I would ask questions that I can determine, is this person a decision maker? Because that's much of what we have to do in sales. We have to make decisions on what prospect we want to go take time to see. We have to make decisions when we're in the sales call. Is it time to throw in the towel and leave, or do we hang in there? So you got to be a good decision maker. I don't want a person who loves people, and that's not what a lot of people look for. I often hear business people say, I want to hire people who like people. I don't want to hire a person that likes people, because they'll fall in love with a prospect and they'll never get to a close. They can't go for a no. So I want a person who is good with people but won't go to the bar if they don't make a sale. It's the old question. It's the old decision of what's next. I want a person who's okay with that. I hate resumes. I've never seen a bad resume in my life. I discount resumes to about 1% of the hiring process. I think the interview is very important. The face-to-face interview, if you can, if the person's in your area, face-to-face interview, I'd put them in a role play situation and give them a hypothetical situation and see how they perform in a role play. You as would be the prospect and let the salesperson role play in the sales role. There's really, if you follow a good process, benchmarking, do assessments, do a telephone and then personal interview, role play with them, then, it's gut after that. 100% in anything. People have to want it. There's one thing I want to add to that. Get to ask them what their why is. Why? Why do they want to do this? Why do they want to come to work for you? Why do they want to meet their goals? Why do they want to achieve? What motivates them? I would ask them those questions because I think that's very important. I want to know what drives them.
Great. Super helpful. So once you hire somebody, Warren, how do you know quickly whether you made a good decision? How can you tell in the early, what are you looking for early on to know if it's a good fit and or expectations if you feel like you're on a different page? But how do you know early, and then how do you keep things from getting off track? Because it seems like that happens sometimes quickly for both parties, and then both parties end the thing disgruntled.
I think early on in this call, if I didn't say it, I meant to, and that is so many companies bring a salesperson on, and I have a one-liner that they say, you are one, and here's your briefcase and your flip chart, and go sell. That's setting a person up for failure. I don't care how good, what credentials the person has. When that person comes to you, you ought to have a written onboarding process. What's an onboarding process? It should be, what are you going to do day 1, day 2, day 3, week 1, week 2, week 3, etc. So the salesperson's got to know what that person's going through to reach success. You would be amazed, even you people that have salespeople on board, ask them to write one paragraph about the company. What are the company values? Ask them to write a paragraph on what the product is that your company sells, or if they don't sell a product, the service that your company provides. And you would be amazed, because we've done this in a lot of sales training. People are sent out there and they don't know what their company's all about. They don't really understand their product or their service, and they got to go sell. It's ridiculous. How are they going to bring value to their new customer or their new client if they don't understand those things? This is not just go sell a product or sell a service. This is a long-term relationship, which, by the way, I think that's very important too for all of you in the sales and in any area, any department of your company. For goodness sake, take time and really get yourself some good coaching. I'm going to promote Wayne now in the ongoing coaching, counseling, and reinforcement, because he and I did this together, and I've done it for years with all my clients. This is not a one day, one moment, 1 month project. I used to tell all my clients, and Wayne was the same, I'm going to work with you for 3 months, and we're going to set goals of what we're going to do in those 3 months, and then we're going to determine, do we like each other enough? Are we bringing value to each other? To have an ongoing process. Many of my clients were with me for years and years, and there's nothing for a client to be with me 10 or 15 years, because you got to make sure that you're satisfying and bringing value to them. Sorry, I didn't mean to digress.
That's okay. And it's pretty similar for a salesperson, is what you're saying. If the agreement between the manager and the salesperson would be similar in that 90 days, we're going to work closely together. And then after that, we're going to, if we both think it's a good fit, we're going to continue to work together. And a manager and their employees should have a similar relationship to the relationship I would have with a client, or that you had with me when I was your client. It's pretty similar to that, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's a two-way street. The salesperson should want that from his manager and his company. I say his. I'm telling you, I had a lot of great women that were outstanding salespeople in their organizations, and good women managers, by the way. But salespeople should want that as much as the company, the management should want the relationship. It's a two-way street. There's absolutely no, you got to work together on that kind of thing.
So there's two questions I have. One is a salesperson question, one's a manager one. The first question is the salesperson question. You and I talk a bit, and you always act, technology has moved on in the last 5 years, and it certainly has changed a lot. But as I've said to you, there's so many things are very much the same and foundational. And in fact, I think some of us get really confused because of all the technology coming at us, and we are trying all these different things and not keeping it simple the way that you outlined in your 1, 2, 3, don't make it hard. That said, though, I do know one thing has really changed that I'd be curious on your input, and that is consumers today whether it could be B2B, it could be business owners buying a product service, or it could be consumers. And I'm thinking I have 2 car salespeople who happen to work for my dad and his new car dealership, Warren. They're working with this new phenomena. And what it is, consumers today have access to lots of information very easily all over the internet. They can take themselves, it's often said that many consumers today are going 80% of the way to the buying decision on their own, or at least they would like to. They want to get all this information, try to do their own evaluations and such. And so one of the things that's difficult is to early in the sales process, get people to view you as a consultant and somebody who can really be the guide to help them make the right decision and make a good decision as to whether they should part with either their current hard-earned money or money that they'll finance down the road. So having a real conversation where somebody drops their shield a bit and really engages with you, and specifically in the car dealer world, what they're all working to do, they'd like to have people come to view the cars, talk to them for real, as opposed to hiding behind the internet and the computer and the phone and so on and dodging and things like that. Of course, it's one of the challenges is you have competitors who are harassing people sometimes without adding real value in that process and just trying to berate them to come into the dealership. So people get a bit gun shy, consumers get a bit gun shy to that. What kind of advice would you have for us, me included, because I deal with the same thing with business owners who have lots of information about coaches and consultants on the internet? How can we engage? How do you think we might engage with people quickly to really understand their needs and have a good conversation?
Wow, very interesting that you say this, and I'm probably going to ask you to ask me one question to put this all in a nutshell. Wayne, my sons, I think I said, took over our car company, bought our car company. I often enjoy talking with them, and I say, I couldn't even run your business right now because it's so internet driven. I think 80-85% of their prospects are the internet, whereas we advertise and make calls and that kind of thing. And I'm going to try to answer it in just another 30 seconds, and then you tell me if I was close to hitting the mark, which I don't know whether I am. I believe that people buy from people. Once you get a prospect, I think the important thing is that you ask enough questions to your prospect to be sure that you understand what their needs are, and we often call them their pains, where they hurt. If we can find out where people hurt, then if we can fill that need to satisfy their hurt, then we'll do business together. I think asking questions is very important, but there's a whole new ball game with technology is how you first get to talk to the prospect, because so many times we know in today when we make cold calls, it's not like it used to be where you could get through and have to fight through a gatekeeper a little bit, fight through the voicemail. Now, most of your come through the internet to you. I don't know whether I fielded that question, but why don't you ask it again and maybe I can help. Maybe I won't. I don't know.
Thank you for tuning into the Business Builder Way podcast. If this episode spoke to you, click that subscribe button and share it with a friend. That's how this message gets out into the world. If it is helpful for us to have a short conversation, I'd love to do that. Send me an email at wayne@businessbuildercamp.com.